Okay. Let me adjust myself. Okay. All right, you guys, welcome to a brand new episode of Hot Topic. So, let me tell you what this show is about. This is the show where we like to take people's business and put it all out in the open. Let me tell you, as a Trinidadian, we Trinidadians like to take people's business and put it all out there for other people to know. So we're going to do that. I'm going to stick to my Trinidadian roots. So I'm going to take my guest business and put it all out there. However, this is not for the purpose of gossip. This ain't your gossip show. This ain't your Hot Topics gossip show. This is all in the name of education. This is all in the name of learning. So we like to take people business and put it all out in the open. But it is for the purpose of education and learning. And today is no different than any other show. Let me tell you what this show is about. Just bear with me. I feel like my voice is about to be hoarse. I just came from my guest's podcast and now she's on mine. So we're podcast swapping today. So bear with me. I feel like my throat is dry. All right, so let's get right to it. So let me tell you what this topic is about. Let me tell you what this show is about. I'm going to tell you the topic of the show. The topic of the show is Resiliency Part 2. We are continuing the conversation about resiliency, and we have a repeat topic. I love it when we have repeat topics. It's different guests, but it's the same topics. And I love it when that happens because we get to look at one thing in multiple perspectives. And I love it when we do that. And Gabrielle, am all about all around learning. So we are bringing back the topic of resiliency, and I have a guest with me who is going to help me out. I just came from her podcast, and now she is on mine. So let me tell you who she is. Oh, I forgot her banner. Let me just create her banner real quick. Who is Stefanie Molina? Whoopsie. All right, so my guest, her name is Stefanie Molina, and I am going to tell you about her. So let's do that. Who is Stefanie Molina? Let me tell you who she is. So Stefanie was born in East New York, Brooklyn. What? She is currently studying full-time to be an RN with hopes of becoming a nurse practitioner. Currently, she's working as a medical assistant for the past 7 years in various fields that extend from vascular, dermatology, and pediatrics. Life in the medical field did not start out as so. With her associates in architectural technology, where Andres and Steph met, I guess that's her husband, this was just the beginning of her decade career working in the field of construction and project management. Being a female in the field was always a welcomed challenge. In her previous life, she was a dance instructor and assistant for over 16 years. Being a competitive dancer always gave her the confidence and understanding of how the world works. Traveling all over the States for competition exposed her to so many talents and amazing people. Just like life has a beautiful way of reminding you that change can be good and sometimes needed, is now co-host and creator of 2 podcasts, Table for 4, and 20 Talk 20. All this while working as a radio show intern at Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC, and awarding show in Long Island. These new changes and adventures are just another stepping stone in the many goals she has set for the years to come. Fabulous. Fabulous. All right, so let's get right to it. I am going to bring Stefanie Molina to the stage. Hey, how
Hi.
are you doing?
I'm doing well. I know this is very exciting, and that was a beautiful intro. Beautiful intro, I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, so we talked about your life, and so we're gonna continue that conversation. So you're going to tell us about resiliency, and you definitely lived a life of resiliency, and I wanted to, I want the world to hear your story. So I'm going to pass over the baton to you, and I'm just going to let you tell your story.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Gabrielle, for taking the time and letting me get on this podcast with you today. And I'm super excited. Yeah, the word resiliency, that's a word that I like to just say extend a little bit on it. I think resiliency is just more than one thing. I don't see myself as a perfect person because I'm not. I have many flaws, but I think through my resiliency and through a lot of my stubbornness, I think it goes hand in hand with resiliency. As you mentioned before, I'm currently studying to be an RN and with hopes and dreams to be a nurse practitioner. I have lots of experiences, but it always started somewhere. So where did we start? We start as young as 4 years old when I started dancing. I've been in the dance field for a little over 20 years. I've had experiences in competitive dance. I've traveled the States. I've had an amazing childhood and being able to travel to those places and be exposed to so many other things in so many different cultures. So that alone was had a building foundation for me, being able to get in touch with so many different people. So I've always tried to be a service. That's the thing that I always try to say to myself. That's another foundation for me for resiliency, is trying to adapt. That's the thing that you can only do in the position that you can be in. But this going on to studying to be an RN, this is technically my third degree that I've been working on. And then believe me, it's not because I'm bored, because I'm not. It's just I love to keep busy. And if anybody knows me, that I'm super, super busy. And that's by choice, not by obligation. So, but going on and studying to be an RN was my third career. My first career was definitely in the dance field. My second career, I was in architecture. I graduated with my architecture degree. I was able to work alongside with different engineers, intern in great architectural companies. I've worked with environmental, I've worked with plumbing, design, department of buildings. So I have this weird foundation of plan building, designing. I've done renovation work, and I ended up being a project manager for a construction company for a little bit before Sandy. So that kept me busy. And, unfortunately, with layoffs and with things like that, I decided to say, hey, okay, what can I do now? So that really kind of was the turning point for me to go into the medical field. But before that, I got very ill about say 6, 7 years ago when I developed a DVT, which is deep vein thrombosis on both of my legs. So I ended up getting into the hospital and I was admitted, and I was supremely grateful for the nurses and doctors that were there that took care of me. So that really kind of made me want to change into the medical field, because I feel like there's always something to do. There's so many different venues and different routes that you can do in the medical field. So I really wanted to use that as my motivation, to continue with that. But me being sick was kind of the eye opener for me. It was like the tremendous amount of respect that I have for the essential worker and for the medical field, that it's beyond what I can say. So we are a field of service, and it's something that I'm continuing to try to do. So when I first got sick, I said, you know what, I gotta figure things out. I had young children, I'm too young. I don't want to die. So those are the types of things that really made me think, gotta be resilient. I have to be there for my family. So I gotta do a career change. And that career change, I think, was for the better for me. I've only done more positive things for me at this point, and I'm super excited to see where it takes me. Um, in being a mom, being a lady, being a woman, and all these things, you're trying to keep up with these things that are constantly changing and constantly moving, along with careers and, just life itself. So being able to be consistent, I think it's one thing, and being persistent is another thing, and being insistent. So I always like to say that I'm persistent in what I want to do, I'm consistent in what the things I need to do, and I'm insisting that it's something that I need to do. So I think those are the type of things that I say to myself, like my mantra is like, if you need to get this done, this is what you got to do. So you got to push yourself regardless of the circumstances. But I know life always gets in the way, because that's just how life is. So I think the buildup and the resiliency that I do have does come with life experience, but I think everybody has life experience. But I really feel like keeping persistent, insistent, and doing those things in order to continue and be passionate about the things that I want to do is something that I'm truly, truly grateful for being. And being stubborn is another thing. But going into the medical field and starting my third degree in nursing, I started in back in 2018. A friend of mine he was an LPN, and he's like, listen, if you want to do something, you better go back to school. This is something if you're good at this, there's a career, don't worry about it. You just got to go back to school. And I'm like, oh my God, I decided to start school all over again at the age of 37. I'm like, are you crazy? But yeah, I guess I am a little bit, but starting from the beginning, I'm at the finish line. I'm on my third year. I'm almost there. So I think again of being resilient. I'm like, I want to do things. I want to leave a legacy for my children. I want to do things to, again, be a service to the community that I want to serve and to help them. And I also have this need to be a good role model for my kids. So if they see their mom struggling and still going to school and still trying to do these things, it's something that I want to pass on to them. And having this opportunity to also run a podcast with them on top of everything else that's going on between working part-time and going to school full-time, and then being a mom full-time and taking care, the home. You gotta be crazy, or you gotta be insistent on what you want to do in order to complete your goals. So that's something definitely I would have to say about resiliency for sure.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that.
No worries.
So one of the things that I want to point out is you didn't have just one career change; you had two career changes.
Yeah.
You started off as a dancer, I think, and then you switched over to
architecture. Yeah.
architecture, and then you switched over
To medical.
finally to nursing. So can you talk more about that?
Sure. When I got into dance, I started very young. I was teaching, dancing and teaching for 10, 15 years at that point. When I got into high school, they always have the auditions for the major schools, LaGuardia, Talent and Unlimited. So I was put on the wait list for all those schools. So I didn't make it. So I didn't have the skills to pay the bills, is that what they would say? But that didn't really stop me. My mom always says you have to have a backup plan. So you have to have a backup to a backup to a backup. So again, that's how resiliency is built in. You have to have a backup for the backup. So my backup was to go to an engineering school. So through there, I still continue dance regardless, even if I didn't go to school for the performing arts, because there's a love there. I've always had a love for that. I will never not love it. So for me, I was able to transition, and I got into an engineering program, and I was there for 4 years, and I got 2 college scholarships, and I was able to work close in hand with several architectural firms and engineering firms. So from there, I kind of sparked the interest to go into college for architecture. I also have, my family has a background in civil engineering. So it's in my blood in some way. So for me, I'm the oldest, first grandchild, I'm the oldest in my family. So it was a lot of riding on that. But at that point, I figured, this is something that I can do. And it was a great thing. And I was really interested in doing that. And that's how I got into architecture. And then once I started architecture, I was like, then 9/11 hit, which was really weird because that was the first, it was literally you start school September and September 11th happened. So that was a really big game changer. And, the world was changed from there. And, you know, thinking back to how things started from there and starting progressing from there, everything was about rebuilding. So my affinity or my love for architecture really goes into simplicity. It's really about foundation and building up. And I always had this affinity and this love for architecture, and I always do. And I've always dreamed to still travel the world and see all different kinds of, buildings and Leaning Tower, Pisa, Frank Lloyd Wright, and it's just so many things that I still am in love with architecture. Just because I changed my career doesn't mean I don't longer have an interest in it. But that was really my transition, was in high school, getting involved with these internships and having the opportunity doing presentations, and they paid half for school. So it wasn't that bad either, getting the college scholarships as well. So from that career, I really went into something where it was difficult for me to be not only a Latina, not only as a woman, not only as an immigrant. There were so many barriers in order for me to do what I wanted to do. So I've been in a field where it's been dominated by men. So I had to build my tough skin, be able to speak up for myself, and use my education as a way to kind of like push to the crowd and say, hey, I'm here. I have an idea of what's going on, and this is what it is. So being resilient again, having to push through and see and prove your worth. I think that's always something that I've done my whole life, but that's something definitely that I've really trickled into when it came to that transition from dance into architecture.
Interesting. So I just want to point out that you are such a New Yorker. you, you are so, I'm listening to you talk and I'm like, she is such a New Yorker, going to
I know, it's
special
so
ed
bad. It's so
school,
obvious. I know.
and 9/11 just everything was going well, and then
That,
9/11 happened, and then that was it.
that was it.
Uh,
So you
oh my,
already know. You already know.
I already know, yeah. Oh man. So so it's so I just let's talk about the transition from dancing to architecture a little bit more.
Sure.
So what was it about? Because 9/11 happened during your architecture
Mm-hmm,
time.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I guess what happened that you was it I guess I wanted to clarify. Was it that you didn't get into any specialized schools, that you just said I'm just gonna give up and do the family business?
No, not really. Because I didn't get into the performing arts school for dance, I started, and they said, well, why don't you get into an engineering school? It's close to the home. You have amazing grades, you can get in. And that was really where the transition started. So then I had a great professor, one of the engineering teachers there. They were able to get us into these great internship programs where you would do internships for about 16, 18 weeks. And you're there like half the school year. And from there, they prepare you. They go over floor plans with you. They go over details. They go over and they do a presentation with you at the end of the semester, like, the end of the school year. So it kind of prepared me for how it was in the real world. Like, you had real world experience, and I was able to go into different buildings in the process of them being built, from foundation to studs to putting up sheet rock and tile walls and I had the opportunity to see both residential and commercial. But a lot of the internship opportunities that I have, I was really more in the commercial. So I was always in Times Square. I was always in 34th Street. And there was these amazing buildings that you see every day. You have, so Empire State Building, Freedom Towers, which is there now, but you had the Empire State Building, which is where I went for my internship. So that was literally like a year before. So seeing that, and sometimes it didn't work out with dance, but I still continued dancing. But I was like, now let's transition to something that's going to get me paid, I guess, in a sense, because, God forbid, with the dance career, which was my initial, that's a lie. My first dream career was to be an oceanographer, but that's another story for another day. But for dance, God forbid you break a leg and you really can't perform. That's the end of that. But, if I had a backup, which, you have to kind of have, architecture was not the backup, but I think it was just my plan B. I hope I clarified with that.
Yeah, so it was, you weren't getting to these schools, and you pursued something, but when it comes to any specialized high school in good old New York City, it's hard to get into.
Yeah.
It's like a wing and a dream and a wing and a prayer to get
Yeah,
into those schools, and so you had your heart set out and it didn't work out, and so you you what's the word, you fell on your plan B.
for sure,
It's,
for sure. I
yeah,
had a plan
so
C too.
you got a plan C too.
Plan
So
C.
that what you were talking
Had
about,
at
yeah.
that point, you're gonna laugh at me. I had my plan D was to move to Florida. I had gotten to accepted to 3 schools in Florida for College of Architecture, and I got into Florida University. I got into University of Miami, and the other I forget the name of the third school, but I got into 3 schools for Florida. But what changed my mind was the plan C was the amount of the tuition. I was looking, now we're talking about a couple of years ago, talking about going into college. Tuition for a 5-year degree was $110,000 at that point. Between the internship and I got the internship and the scholarship, and then, tuition help. I was not going to cover any of that tuition. So my mom was like, listen, I love you, but we're not going to be able to afford this school. So school it is, we got to plan C, this is what we can do for now. And I don't regret it. I really don't regret it. I've had a great experience in college. I've learned, and I've had so many great memories, and I met my husband in college. So, if I would have went to college in Florida, I would have never met my husband. So that to me, it all worked out. So
Wow. Oh man, your parents, they were like, yeah,
it was like, and they didn't pay for school. My mom and dad, they didn't have to pay for school, because I had scholarships, and they had, with a little bit of the tuition, they didn't really pay much out of pocket. If they, I stayed at home, don't get me wrong, I wasn't living on my own in an apartment, nothing like that, but with the help of the tuition and stuff like that, it was 110,000. Oh, it was a lot. It was a lot. So that was my plan C. So that's how that worked out. So no regrets, though. No regrets. I have no regrets.
Of course. So now you get into architecture, and then 9/11 happens, which is like the story of every New Yorker's life. So what was it about? So obviously that event shook you up, and it kind of
For
shattered
sure.
your foundation a little bit. So
For sure. For sure.
yeah, as it did for everyone, for every New Yorker, I think. So what was that like for you? Maybe if you could go into what happened. How was your 9/11? That's basically what I'm trying to ask.
To be really quite honest, it was really uh I want to say my experience is very small. I don't know if that's the right word. Um I was on the opposite side of the Manhattan Bridge. So from my perspective, the I saw the building on fire, and my first view was seeing the people crossing the bridge. That was really my first experience. So seeing this tremendous amount of people crossing that bridge, that was something that was very unusual, unless it was like a marathon or something, because I've seen many marathons before, but to see that tremendous amount of people crossing over the bridge, and then standing in the middle of the street, that was something I think that was one of the most powerful memories that I have. I remember standing in the middle of the street and it was so crowded, you could not move. And it was just me trying to find a way to get home. I know people that walked all the way home from Manhattan to Brooklyn. I know people that have walked from Manhattan to Queens. I mean, the stories that I've heard, mine is minuscule in comparison to all the other stories. But just like any other story, it took me, I want to say, 8 hours to get home. Just to find a bus, to get on a bus, and find any exit or any way to get as close as home as I could. But it was really that was one of the, I think, the most triggering, not triggering, I don't want to say triggering, but that was like one of the most one of the memories that I have from that experience in itself. But the day after, and not wanting to go to school, wanting to stay home, not wanting to study, not wanting to do anything, that was really like 2 or 3 weeks after that, falling into a deep depression. It's like, this is my first year of college. I'm supposed to be enjoying this. And you have this unfortunate, this event, kind of put a damper on everything, not just on my life, but, everyone all over the world. So, just to have that first college experience was a little bit dampened by that. But, as New Yorkers, we are resilient, so that's something that I have to say, again, it's small in comparison to the other stories that I've been able to listen to, for sure.
Well, I mean, you say it was small, but it changed your perspective on architecture
Oh,
in
of course.
terms of
It kind of solidified me wanting to do it. It kind of really solidified and say, what can we do? We rebuild. That's what it is. You have these amazing designers, architectures, engineers, that they are there to help rebuild. So I was just like, oh, this is for me. This is how I can be of service. This is something that let's confirm this. This is what I want to do. And let's take it from there. Let's go with the ground running. That was really how I saw it at that point, for sure.
All right. All right. So now let's move forward a little bit. So now at some point, so you're setting your goals, what, architecture, this is the way I'm going to go. 9/11 taught me to rebuild. But then, and then you got sick. Is
Yes,
that what it
yes.
was? Yeah.
Really, when my husband and myself, we met in college. So our love story has transcended, and we've now been together for 21 years right now. So that was really how us being together and confirming that even though I'm ill, that I have somebody behind me and I have my support. So when I did get very, very ill, my children were very, very little. And with thinking about imminent death, because for me, it was really imminent death for me, because a lot of people at that time around me, I looked healthy, and, I was 31 at the time. So I was fairly young. I, just started, my kids are little. And to have something like this, where you have approximately 300,000 people that die from DVTs every year. So for me, it was a very scary thing to say, this is a big possibility for me. So that's when everything else just changed. I'm just like, what am I doing? What did I do? What did I do to deserve this? And you have to think of it as like, sometimes these things are, these things happen, and this is how life is. So being sick really, again, was one of those life-changing things that kind of reconfirmed for me. It's like, maybe architecture is not for me anymore, because at that turning point, it was also Sandy. So Sandy was like,
Another New York event.
yeah, it's just like Sandy came in and just like what else? You know what I mean? And it was just like I saw so much fraud, and then I started to lose my interest, and I started to not see all the good parts and the good, sides of architecture in that sense. Don't get me wrong. There are people that are doing amazing things, but I felt like it wasn't for me anymore. And I was in it for 10 years, and it was a lot of hustling, different contracts, 6-month contracts here, 6-month contracts there. And then when I did get into a good position where I was a project manager, I was there for 2 or 3 years, and then layoffs right at the time of Sandy. So it's just like, oh man. So again, what's my plan B? I don't know. At this point, I said,
Well,
well,
you're at plan C at this
I'm
point.
on plan C right now. So it's just like, so being sick and in that time frame, it's just like you can't help but be depressed. You can't help but be, sad about your circumstances. So you have to take a look back and just just reflect and just like, I'm grateful for this happening, and I see these things as obstacles, like anything else. They're obstacles. You got to get through it, and they're not the best of things, and you have to just take that into perspective. So when I saw things were not doing well for me and I became more and more ill, then I took it upon myself to say I need to seek help. So I went ahead and I started doing therapy. And for me, I think therapy was the best thing that I can do, because I did suffer from PTSD because I was ill. So me being ill was a constant reminder that I can die at any minute. And I was just like, I can't live my life like this. It's just like, how can I move forward if I'm constantly living in fear that I'm going to die? So this was like a big change for me. So I had to go and, find that resiliency again. I gotta figure it out, so seeking help and looking to the support of my husband, my boyfriend at the time, or my fiance at the time. I don't know. I lose track of time. But finding support in family and finding support in friends, and seeing and recognizing that I did need help because of me being sick. It was just another change and another transition in my life. It's just like, okay, I got to figure things out. So what do we do next? So this was something that was the change for me. I hope I answered your question. I really hope I answered your question.
Yeah. You're doing the same thing I did during your podcast. But so what you said that you really needed to seek help. So
Yeah.
and you were already sick. So when you
I was
say
already sick. Yeah.
that you needed to seek help, are you talking like mentally? Like how are you
It was
feeling
both.
emotionally?
It was both, really. At one point I did feel suicidal on two occasions. I did not have any attempts, but I was suicidal at that point because I was constantly worrying about, I'm going to die, so I might as well just do it now so that I can get it over with. So being so scared and being, wondering about, well, I don't want to die in this way. And it's just like, now I gotta find help, because this is not healthy. This is not healthy. So with the suicide attempts and with having those demon thoughts, because that's the only thing I can say, having those thoughts in your head, and they're constantly at the back of your mind, and they're nagging you, and they're telling you all the negative things, about yourself, and those things are not true. It's not true. So when seeking the help and recognizing that I needed help was a very important transition for me as well. So that was really another turn for me, for sure.
So when you realized that, you said you went to a therapist, right?
Right. I went to therapy.
So were you still sick as this was going on?
Yeah, I was. I was still developing blood clots in my legs. I was developing them in my neck. So I think what was the fear is that one clot can travel to my lung, and one can travel to my leg, and one can travel to my heart, and one can travel to my brain. So it's just like all these things kept on happening, and I was just like, man, what am I going to do? So I continued taking medication. I started taking medication for depression, and that didn't help for me either. That even put me down into more of a deeper spiral, because the medication did not work for me, not for my PTSD, not for my depression, for my anxiety. And with the development with these blood clots, I had what they called a protein C, protein S deficiency. So a simple way of saying is that my body has a tendency to clot more than anything else. And they said that my blood is viscous, or it's thick in syrupy, and it's thick in consistency. So that was really the way that I was thinking about it. So it's just like, these blood clots are still developing, and it's just like, what am I gonna do? So you're on Coumadin, you're on these blood thinners, you're on warfarin, you have to go to the doctor every week, get blood work, do PTTs, INRs, so it's just like it was constantly happening. So
It was one
with
thing after
it
another.
was one thing after another, and it's like when it rains, it pours. So that was really what it was. And then all of this was happening at the same time that my husband was transitioning in his career, and then my children were little. So, trying to keep up with the household, that wasn't happening. Trying to keep up with, me not working, that wasn't happening. Being laid off, it was so many different components that, led to these demon thoughts. That's why I have to keep saying it. These bad thoughts, and it was just one thing after another, for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, it's your and how long have you been sick? What period of time? Do you remember?
Yeah. I started. You don't start being sick. That it just happens. I became very ill in 2014. I started to become very, very, and it was really I really wanted to say that I got my first hospitalization was in 2015, and then I was hospitalized 3 other occasions after that. And then I continued to go to do MRIs. I had to continue doing the EKGs. I had to go get um, chest x rays because now they had to see where the clots were. So I had 2 in my legs and I had 2 close to my neck. So the fear was always that these 2 would cause the stroke and to go to my head. And, thinking of all these things, it's just like that was really that time frame from 2014 was really when I was sick at that point, for sure. Mm-hmm.
And when did everything when were
Kind of
you
subside.
yeah.
Let's see. I still have the condition, but it's been more controlled. And I was on Coumadin therapy from 2014 to 2019. So 5 years I was on treatment. It really started to subside around 2018. So around that time, it was really started to subside, and I started to lose weight. They started to wean me off medication. I started to get off the depression medication. I started to get off all the different mental. I don't want to say mental diseases, but the medications that I was on, and I can't even remember how many I was on, and kept on changing, but they just didn't work for me. But it was like really 2018 I really started to wean off of that medication. That was really the time period for me.
So a period of 4 years.
Yeah.
So it's 4 years, which is a normal college stretch, and you're so at this point you're not in school, right? You're out of school.
No, no, I'm out of school. Yeah, I'm home at this point.
Yeah.
So, with young kids at home, I decided to go back to school after me being ill for a little bit. I went back to school for medical assisting. So I should have went back to nursing. Like I should have went to nursing first, but I don't regret not going into nursing first because I don't think I was ready. Because nursing school is one of the most difficult studies, along with lawyers and along with engineering, architecture. It's one of the most difficult degrees that one can try to obtain. So um, I went back to medical assisting school. I went there for a year and I started working right away. So when I graduated in 2016, I was still sick at the time, but I was like, I was doing better. But I was just like, I gotta do something. I can't not work, because I've always been a person, a busybody. So if I'm not moving, something's wrong, So when I went to medical assistant school, I was able to work with, an amazing staff in the Brooklyn Hospital, and I was there for vascular surgery. I did my internship there, and then I continued working with them, and it was just an amazing opportunity just to continue working with them. So really, again, being resilient. Plan D. I'm on plan D now. So I went to medical assisting school. Um, I have to say it was a unique experience. I felt like I was back in high school, to be quite honest. So, but I came there, I did what I had to do, and my husband, he held it down. And that is what, that's what you have to do. You just got to find the will, the drive, and the energy, just the energy to do half those things for sure.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
laughed at myself because I'm like, did I really just do all those things? I'm like, yeah, because you're insane. That's why.
Well, I mean, you kept pushing forward, right?
Right.
So we've had life of you. We've I don't know what the word for it is, but you had two catastrophic events happen to you. You had 9/11, you had Hurricane Sandy, and even I can testify to those events being just devastating
Yeah.
for us New Yorkers. So you had 9/11, you had Hurricane Sandy, you 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 have a blood clotting disease for at least 4 years, and you have little kids at home, and even from the beginning you don't get into the schools that you want, so you have to do your plan B. So you've had all these changes, you've had all these catastrophic events. You've been sick for at least 4 years. So it's like one thing after another. And yet, oh, and whatever you were doing at the time, for one reason or another, you didn't stick it out. So it was just, all there's like one thing after another that kept happening to you. And yet here you are, you know, here you are, you're still standing, you're managing, and,
I don't know if
and
I'm managing, but I'm there. Truth is truth. I'm about to be. I don't want to reveal my age, but I'm about to be 40, so I'm still struggling. Just nursing school has been an obstacle in itself. I have been nonstop. I have not stopped since 2018. Fall, spring, summer. Fall, spring, summer. So it's been yeah, it's been fun. So.
I mean, but that's the core of resiliency. And I
Right.
mean, maybe yes, you're still working things out, but that's the core. When things, that common saying, when you get knocked down, you get yourself back up, right? And you
That's right.
had to, and you kept getting knocked down, and so you kept getting back up, and you could have quit and thrown in the towel and blah blah blah, yada yada yada. But
You might
you
not
know,
know about it. I'm not gonna talk about it because I want to make myself look good, but facts is facts. You don't even know about the plans X, Y, and Z, but we don't have time for that. I'm just saying, facts is facts. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but you kept pushing, right? You
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
give up, and that's the core of resiliency is you got to keep pushing when things are hard. So now let's start to wind things down a bit. So now what so I'll put it like this. So if you can go back in time and talk to your 16-year-old self, right? What would you say?
Hmm. um, get a different Sweet 16 dress. Because it wasn't the best fitting. Um, no, I'm kidding. No, my Sweet 16 was great. Um, I would have to say to my 16-year-old self is to be a little bit more cognizant of your finances. Um, Early in my life, I had great credit. And when I say great credit, I mean, you know, paying your bills on time and nothing late and things like that. So, in between the time that I got laid off, I had to file for bankruptcy. God. So if I had to tell my 16-year-old self, have a backup for the backup, for the backup, pull the backup because you're 16, you're young, and I was making good money when I was 16 because I was working in summer school. I was as a counselor. I was teaching dance. I was making great money, so it's just like I didn't have to pay rent. I didn't have to pay utilities and nothing like that. So I'm just splurging, hey, just buying whatever. And so I would definitely tell my 16-year-old self to work more on my finances. Um, and another thing I would have to tell myself is that don't be afraid to make those mistakes. I think I place a lot of pressure on myself because you always want to try to be perfect, and I think through my early teens and early college years, I always try to be perfect, and it was always about perfection and I think architecture kind of forced me to do that because there's very little room for mistakes. You're thinking about the different lives you put at stake if your numbers are off, if there's anything in particular. Same thing with medicine's the same thing. Medicine is so finicky. You don't want to make those silly mistakes. People's lives are important. So I would tell my 16-year-old self to don't be so hard on yourself. You know, you're not perfect. Everybody comes with flaws. And to give love more of a chance. I would have to say that. I would say I did not have many boyfriends. And if truth is truth, my husband was my only boyfriend. Truth is truth. So I would tell my 16-year-old to keep it that way and save yourself for somebody that is worth your time and worth to being with. So that is something that I would say don't change about that, but definitely work on your finances. Try to have more understanding that you can make mistakes as a human and nobody is perfect, and not to really change how you feel about life, but not to be so hard on yourself for sure, and to enjoy it a little bit and not be so the word I want to say malgada. That's not the only thing, because I know that I have resting bitch face. A lot of people tell me that, but literally inside, I feel like if I was to exude and show what I am so happy on the inside and let it show in my face, because my face gives everything away, which is one of my flaws. But I would tell my 16-year-old self to not be so hard on yourself as well.
Beautiful. You know what? That was so beautiful. I think we're going to hold it right there. All right. So let me put up your banner. All right, you guys. So Stefanie Molina, she is all over that social media. She is on Facebook. She got 2 Instagrams. She's on TikTok, Twitter, YouTube. So she is all over that social media. And her website, let me just say what her website is. It is www.table, the number 4, the word 4, podcast.com. So don't worry, all of this will be in the description. So it's on the screen right now. If for those of you watching this on video, but if you're listening on like Spotify or Apple, all of this information is in the description. I'll just give her website again. It is www.table number 4 word 4 podcast.com, and look her up on Facebook, both her Instagrams, TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. So follow her everywhere. Find every one of those accounts and
You can
follow
find
her on
me.
every single one of those accounts. Yeah, so definitely hit her up, you guys. And just want to shout out, she has a podcast called Table for Four, which I was just a guest on. So I'm looking forward to listening to the sound of my own voice, I guess. So it is, her podcast is wherever there are podcasts, you guys. So Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Google, Google Smoogle, everywhere. There's a lot, Castbox, wherever there are podcasts, her podcast is there. It is called Table for Four. Can you tell us briefly what your podcast is about?
Sure. It's a podcast featuring our family right here. If you see my lovely family there, it's my oldest, my youngest, and my husband. So us four, we have a family conversation. It's usually us having we sit at the table and we talk about real stuff. And we've had this great opportunity to talk to other people and our podcast. I'm, crossing my fingers that we can continue growing and continue with just more topics and things like that. But it's really us having conversations and having that kind of connection with our family. So that was really something that kind of sparked for us. And this podcast is very important to me. And my husband is amazing. He's a producer. And my kids, they're great on the mics. That's my youngest over here. If you see him, that's Stefan. And then my oldest over here, like that one is Adrian. So if you guys have an opportunity, check out our podcast. And yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Good stuff. All right. And lastly, just want to make sure we get this in. Stefanie has a radio show called the Nassau Mix. It airs live on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. on 90.3 FM with Nassau Community College. Tell us about that.
Yes, it's something that I fell into. As I started with the podcast, I saw an email stating that they were looking for DJs and hosts for a radio show. And I was just like, oh, yeah, sign me up. So I didn't think I was going to get through, but I did. And now I'm doing these amazing mixes. I'm working with great producers and just having a good old time on the WHPC 90.3 FM. You can find us on Odyssey and you can find us on Our Heart. And I'm live on Tuesdays at 10 a.m.
All right. And that's 10 a.m. Eastern time, right?
Eastern time. Yes, correct.
All right. Awesome. All right. So please check out Stefanie. Check her out on the radio show. Check her out on her podcast. Check her out on all of her social media. All of this information is in the description. Don't worry if you missed it. We will provide all this information to you. All right, Stefanie, thank you so much for joining me today. This was awesome.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right, let me put you off camera now. All right, you guys. Now it is you and me. Let me put up my banner here. All right, and let's do this. And you guys, we have reached the conclusion of our episode. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please check out our other episodes and don't forget to follow us. Follow, subscribe, like, poke, whatever the directive is, do it now. And while you're at it, let us know what you thought about this episode by leaving a comment in the comment section below or in the comment thread. And as a reminder, Hot Topics is a production of A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. So if you would like to learn more about our company, please check out our website, www.astepaheadtutoringservices.com. And you can also check us out on our social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Eventbrite, WhatsApp. So we cover a lot of ground, and I encourage you to seek us out and follow all of our accounts. But definitely, go to our website, www.astepaheadtutoringservices.com. And I also want to point out that if you are looking for tutoring services and you reach out to us, we will give you a 15% discount off of 6 hours of tutoring. So when you mention the word Hot Topics, you'll get 15% off 6 hours of tutoring. So that should give you an incentive to seek our tutoring services. You got that discount coming. Take advantage of that. Why not get a tutor today? And I also want to encourage you, while you're at it, sign up for our email list, sign up for our texting list. That information is also in the description. Stay in touch with us and stay ahead of our announcements. And we give a lot of information. We give a lot of information on our email list and our texting list. So I encourage you to sign up for both of those things. That information is in the description as well. And if you just so happen to be watching this episode on video, it is scrolling at the bottom of your screen in our lovely scrolling marquee. Okay. My voice is going, you guys. All right, so I am just going to share this final message before I officially close. Whoops, wrong message. Here we go.
Hey there, have you heard of us? We're a small team of tutors here at A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. We believe that education and information should be accessible to everyone, regardless of income, race, or creed. We're dedicated to making this happen, but we need your help. Please consider making a donation to our company. No amount is too small. Your donation will allow us tutors to remain employed. Offer free and low-cost services, put on productions like this podcast, and reach out to families nationwide. With your help, we can tackle the academic challenges of our students and the emotional, mental, and behavioral changes that result from these challenges. As a bonus, we can improve our communities in the process. Support us today. Send your donation by Cash App to $ASATS 2013, by PayPal or Venmo to @ASATS 2013, or by Zelle to success@astepaheadtutoringservices.com. For our Facebook Live viewers, you can also send us a star. Your support means a lot to us. Please note, we're a for-profit company. We're not a charity. Your donation may not be tax deductible. Please consult a tax professional.
All right, all right. And that is it for our episode. Thank you so much for watching or listening. I look forward to seeing you at the next episode. And that is it. Now I am signing off. Bye.